Greetings, the Astro 30 here yet again, and welcome back to AL. Thank you for joining me. Now, today I'm going to be looking at a different little circuit here that I've concocted. Now, this is loosely based on a discrete op-amp design that I came up with a few months ago, which was the basis of my AL 2026 amplifier, preamplifier, with just a couple of modifications and an output stage added. Now, the purpose of this circuit is to drive headphones. So this is basically a discrete headphone amplifier, operating closely into Class A mode. For the output devices, we're using BD139 and BD140, and we've got some self-biasing going on here for the output stage using 1M4148 diodes. Now, I could have done what everybody else does and just use an op-amp with some output transistors to boost the current, or an NE5532 on its own to drive the headphones directly. But I don't trust the NE5532 because Texas Instruments has changed the internal circuitry of it and completely screwed the pooch. So I wanted to do a discrete headphone amplifier because I like transistors. Basically, it was taking the discrete op-amp and adding an output stage. But it wasn't that simple. There was issues with frequency response, etc. So a lot of things had to be modified around to make it work correctly. So here's a bode plot of the frequency response of the headphone amplifier, and as we can see, it's relatively flat between 10 Hz and well over 30 kilohertz, which is nice. Looking at the DC characteristics of the circuit, we've got roughly 954 microamps going through the long tail pair input stage here. And we've got a slight imbalance in the collector currents, but that's only because of this resistor here being fairly high value, so that makes sense. Miller compensation for the VAS transistor here, which is a BC549, is only 27 picofarad, but it works fine with that value. It doesn't need to be 100 picofarad, it can be a lower value, it can even be a higher value. It depends on stability issues with the circuit, which is all this capacitor is doing, is making sure that this transistor doesn't go into oscillation. As we can see out the output node here, we've got minus 1.95 millivolts of DC offset, which is excellent. And according to Tina here, we've got 58 MA roughly running through the output stage. So now we're looking at the AC transfer characteristics of the circuit. Most of the DC currents are still the same apart from the output stage. With roughly a 1 volt peak signal going in, we're getting 2.19 volt RMS out across the 32 ohm load. But that's not its full power. So if I go into the signal editor and I change the amplitude to 1.8 and I run the test again, well, now we've got 1.27 volt RMS going in and 3.95 volt RMS coming out. Now, it's 1.8 because that's the maximum input voltage peak that you can apply to this before it starts to clip. So looking at the virtual oscilloscope of Tina here, we can see that the signal looks relatively clean. So if I go back into the signal generator and I change the amplitude to, say, 1.9 volt peak, we can see it starts to asymmetrically clip, which is fine, I guess. It could be improved a little bit better. But that's our maximum point for the input voltage, which is 1.8 volt peak. So I change that back to 1.8. And now I'll export the curve. So it's on the screen so we can see it a little bit better. I'm going to say on one of the peaks we're getting to roughly 5.5 volt. So I'll use a cursor on that. And that tells us that the Y direction for the cursor here is 5.54 volt. So that would be, what, about 11 volt peak to peak? Yeah, 11.1111. volt peak to peak. So if we use our confusolator, we got 5.54 volt peak. We multiply that by 0.0707 to give us the RMS voltage value. Multiply that by itself, then divide it by the load resistance. That gives us a grand total of 479 milliwatts into 32 ohms, which is extremely deafening. So I expect this little amplifier to drive headphones to extreme levels, to the point where you could lose your hearing. So this is the total harmonic distortion at full power, which is 0.1323%. Now, that would make sense because when you drive an amplifier closer and closer to full power, the total harmonic distortion is going to go up. So if I go back into my sine wave generator and I change the input voltage back down to 1 volt, and after running the test again, we can see the total harmonic distortion is a lot lower at 0.009%, thereabouts. So great. The simulation proves the concept works, but does it work in the real world? Well, that's what I'm going to do next, is build it up on breadboard and see if it does actually work. Now, I did have some 4.7 ohm half watt resistors somewhere, or quarter watt ones, metal film. I don't know where they are at the moment. So for the breadboard test, we'll get a little bit less power. I'm going to use 10 ohms instead. But that's neither here nor there. So let's get building something. Okay, and a little while later, after dropping a light onto the circuit board whilst it was powered up and destroying the VAS transistor in the process, getting a 9 volt DC offset on the output for, I don't know what happened. When I dropped the light on the breadboard, it shorted something it must have done, then every pin on the VAS transistor went completely open. As I was saying, a little while later, after that little frustration, I've got the circuit built up on the breadboard here. For the filter decoupling, I'm using two 100 microfarad capacitors because that's what I had to hand. It's really not that great of a big deal of whether it was 22 microfarad in the original schematic or 100 microfarad on the breadboard. As I said in the intro there, I'm using 10 ohm resistors here across the BD139 and 140 output transistors in the emitter degeneration resistors because I don't know where the 4.7s went. And they're on heat sinks. Not the resistors, but the transistors. Because these will dissipate quite a bit of energy. So it's going to need to be heat sinked relatively well. But for what this thing's going to be doing, I think these type of heat sinks and size will be perfect for the job. So I got my power supply set to 15 volt each, 200 mA current limiting, which is fine. So I've got a multimeter measuring the output as well. So I'll just turn the circuit on and see if anything unusual happens, which it shouldn't because I've already tested this off camera. As we can see, immediately we've got a difference in current draw on the circuit, only being about 32 mA. Compared to the 58 mA that Tina was saying that it was going to draw. That could be because the value of these degeneration resistors are 10 ohm, which is almost double, or a little over double, the 4.7 in the schematic, so we're getting a little less current. As for the DC offset component, we're roughly minus 3 millivolt, which is pretty close to what Tina said at minus 1.95 millivolt, I believe it said. Yes, I'm now saying it as millivolt, not millivolt. Miller is just the big brother of milli, by the way. As for this current draw, that's the total current draw of the circuit, not what's going through the output stage. So to figure out what current is actually going through the output stage, I'm going to have to move my multimeter to measure across one of these degeneration resistors. And then do a little bit of math. So we've got roughly 343 odd millivolts of drop across that 10 ohm resistor. Alright, so using a confuser later and Ohm's law, so we've got it's actually climbed up a bit now, 0.344 millivolts divided by 10. No, still 34 mA, so obviously the rest of the circuit isn't drawing that much current. Now this circuit is unloaded, so we want to see if it's actually passing a signal. So the oscillator is already connected, and as we can see, it is producing a signal. Nice. So what I need to do now is I need to load it into a 33 ohm resistor, which is all I've got to hand. I don't have exactly 32, and just see if we get close to the power that Tina said it was going to be, which was 460 odd milliwatts or something. So let me get a load resistor connected to it and see how close we get. Okay, well I couldn't find a 33 ohm 5 watt device because I thought I had one, but apparently I don't seem to have it anymore if I had one to start with. So I've got two 68 ohm resistors here, half watt devices, in parallel to give us, well in this case 34, which is about an ohm higher than I wanted it, but it's okay for a test. I've got the oscillator turned off and the power supplies are off. So we're just going to turn the power supplies back on with the load connected. And not much changed there. So we'll look at the oscilloscope and I'll run the oscillator. We still do have an output, which is good. There we go. See, there's our asymmetrical clipping. That could be corrected probably with a bootstrap circuit. Anyway, we've got 3.6 volt RMS coming out. So for a 34 ohm load, we're looking at more likely 381 milliwatts. Again, that's because those degeneration resistors are slightly higher than what it is in the original schematic. If it was 4.7 ohm, I reckon it'd be more closer to the 420 milliwatt mark. Milliwatt. But that's okay. So let's have a look at what the current draw is when it's actually at full power. So I'm going to ramp the oscillator back up until I get to clipping. And well, the DC component is not really changing that much. It is now when we get close to clipping. Go out of clipping to our 3.6 volt. About 50 mA. They are getting slightly warm, so yeah, those heat sinks should be fine. Great, well, it works. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. No, I'm not serious. But what I should really do now is actually connect this to a pair of headphones, or at least one side of a headphone, and just verify that it passes a signal out into the headphones. So I've got the headphones, 32 ohm, with crocodile clips across the plug, across the output of the amplifier. So hopefully nothing goes up in smoke, so I'll turn the supplies back on. Yeah, we've still got a reasonable current draw, although that's interesting. My scope says it's oscillating. Let me just disconnect the load. Yeah. Well, that's a problem. As soon as I connect the headphones to it, it starts to oscillate. I wonder what frequency that's oscillating at. About 5.5 megahertz. Ooh. Okay, so there's a problem there. Alright, I think I've found the simplest solution. It must be that the headphones are actually slightly capacitive to the amplifier, like a capacitive load. So what I've done is I've got a 10 ohm resistor coming off of the output node going to one side of this 100 nanofarad capacitor, which is not currently connected to anything. So I'm going to use this as, you know, the classic solution, a Zobel network, and this little floating black wire connects to ground. So I'll just connect the end of this wire to the end of that capacitor to put that in series with the output and ground, and we'll watch the scope and see what happens. So there's the scope trace. I now connect the Zobel network capacitor to ground, and there it goes, it's gone. That is how important Zobel networks on the output of an amplifier actually are. So for this particular circuit, it looks like I'm going to have to include a Zobel network. That's just connection issues on the breadboard here. We'll wiggle it around, it goes away. So if I now increase the oscillator, we have absolutely nothing on the scope now as an output, which is strange. I'm in the wrong time base, that's why. There we go, but it's... There, that's stable now. It's just connection issues on the breadboard. So you can probably hear the 1 kilohertz tone in the headphones because it's right next to the microphone. But we can hear that it's actually working. So that's with a tone. Neat. So what we really need to do is we need to pump in an audio signal and just verify that it actually amplifies and it sounds okay in my headphones, in my ears. And if it does, I'll actually hook this up to the signal tracer so you can actually hear the output. It won't be full range, obviously, because that's not how it works. Let me just set this up to have audio input coming in instead of the oscillator, and we'll have a listen. Okay, so we should have some audio now. So play a track. That's what that sounds like. It's quite unbearably loud in my ear. So I probably don't need to put the signal tracer onto that. That's always cool to look at. Okay, so I think that's really going to do it for this video. I don't really need to test it any further. I could go a lot further and test what the powers are at 64, 120 ohm, etc. But I don't really see the need to do that right now because I only have 32 ohm headphones anyway. But I proved the concept actually works, and albeit it's a lot of circuit noise into the headphones, but there's no volume control ahead of this, so it's going to pick up a lot of noise from the computer's headphone output anyway. But the circuit works. It's not oscillating anymore, as far as I can tell. Well, it is if I jiggle the wire. I need to either get another breadboard or invest in better wires. And the oscillation came back. And it went away as soon as I'm talking. Right, there we go. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this video. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. I'm the Astro 30, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to go down below, like, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And as always, this is the Astro 30 saying see ya, thanks for watching, have a great day.